Okay, right, what we're going to do today is we're going to take a really simple melody and then we are going to use some articulations on that really simple melody to make it really come alive. Now, what the criteria for the melody I was looking for today was that it needed to be quite simple because we don't want to focus too much of our energy on actually playing the melody. We want to focus all our attention on the actual articulations. So I've chosen God Save the Queen, which should be familiar to most people. Fairly simple to play. We're going to start on the 5th fret of the B string. 2 hits up to 7th fret of the B string, down to 4th fret, and then 5, 7. Very, very simple. Here we go. 2, 3, 4. Okay, moving on. Got 2 hits at 9th fret, then 10th fret, then 9th, 7th, 5. Okay, then we're coming 7, 5, 4, 5. And that's all we're going to focus on just for now. Obviously, we could follow the crescendo here, and I'm sure you are more than capable of figuring out the notes for that melody. It's very simple and you should be able to play it all on the B string. So let's have a look at some of the articulations we have available to us as guitar players. So the most obvious one, I suppose, is a vibrato. And there I'm generating the vibrato from my wrist because I'm using my first finger. If I was using my second finger, or my third, or my pinky, I'd be using the strength of the finger itself to form the vibrato rather than using the wrist. You can only use wrist vibrato on your first finger. That's not to say that you can't use finger vibrato on your first finger, because you can as well. But wrist is probably the nicest vibrato on the guitar, in my humble opinion. So, and that's really only available on the first finger. So any note that we're going to land on for any particular length of time, we can use some vibrato. And let's now look at God Save the Queen, but let's put some vibrato in. Okay, 2, 3, 4. Now, as you can hear, me putting vibrato on every single note overdoes it. Yeah, we get our ears get very tired of the sound of vibrato if we've got too much vibrato. Certainly to a modern perspective, rewind 100 years and there was no such thing as too much vibrato back in the 1920s. However, nowadays, we're a little bit more selective and we really pick up on overdone vibrato. So what we want is some other articulations that we can sprinkle into our playing so that we're not hearing one particular articulation too much. So let's move on and pick up another articulation. Let's do some slides. Now, a slide is where we play one note and then slide to another. And there we have 2 note values. Da. So we have a slide between 2 notes, both of which we can hear. Now there's another way of doing slides, which is much more of a blues approach to slides, where we actually slide from nowhere. My fingers are already in motion, sliding along the guitar when I pick the note. There, I'm just sliding into 7th fret there. I could have chosen any fret. Have a practice on both versions. So we'll try the first version where we have 2 notes. We're going to go 5 to 7. And then the second version, The finger's already in motion when we pick. Now, both versions are important. Both versions are highly useful in different scenarios. I really like the second version because it just makes the one note sound cooler, which is what we're all about. Whereas that one doesn't always make the note sound cooler. You've got to pick and choose your moments a little bit closer. Whereas obviously that second version, that just sounds good pretty much all the time. Now, both in those circumstances, we were sliding up, so going up in pitch. We could also slide going down in pitch, no reason not to. There I'm just sliding from 7 to 5. Or I could slide from nowhere with my finger already in motion, which is a really, really nice effect. Not very common, can really make a particular note leap out at the listener. So let's have a look at our melody with some slides. There we go. Again, it's very obvious that I'm using just one articulation and I'm really over-egging it. So even though the articulation sounds nice, if you do it on every single note, it sounds too much. Okay, let's move on. So that's vibrato. We've done some slides. Now let's have a look at some hammers and pulls, so some legato technique. So here I'm going to play my 5th fret, and then using my 3rd finger, I'm going to hammer down. So I'm only picking the first note, and then I'm using the strength of the finger itself to get the hammer onto the 7th fret. I can also reverse that and do a pull off. So I'm playing the 7th fret, and then I'm using the finger of the left hand just to strike the note again. Now this is a little bit more difficult because I have a fretted note behind it. Students tend to find pull-offs to open strings much easier. But pulling off to a fretted note is really, really useful for us, so it's well worth practicing. Just remember not to put too much effort in. Think about picking the note with the right hand. You don't have to put all your strength into the thumb to pick the note. So in the same way with the pull-off, remember the guitar wants to make a noise, and we'll do so with very little provocation really. So don't be really straining and putting a lot of effort into your pull-offs, and also make sure that they're under control in speed. It's very easy to play your pull-offs very, very quickly, or hammers very, very quickly, and you lose some of the articulation sometimes if you do that, though obviously it's an entirely valid technique if you use it in the right place. Okay, let's try our melody with some hammers and pulls. Oh, I did a slide there. Okay, so sorry about the slide, that just kind of crept in. But there we've got that melody again played with hammers and pulls. So try playing the melody. As you get more familiar with it, try putting hammers and pulls to the next note, always following the line of the melody. Okay, so that's with a little bit of legato. One thing I do want to mention is that I did a pull off and a slide together. So when I was moving from 7, 5, 4, I just pulled off and then slid the first finger back, which is a really nice technique just to get a real kind of articulated slur we're moving very quickly down, but each note is articulated even though it's very fast, so it's not just completely slurred. We can pick out each note on the way down, which I think is quite nice. Okay, so moving on, next is bends. So here I'm going to take the 7th fret here with my 3rd finger. Behind that 3rd finger I have both 1st and 2nd finger on the string, and then I'm going to push upwards. Now it's really important with a bend to hit it at pitch first, not to be in too much of a rush to bend, because otherwise it sounds out of tune. What we've got to do is hit it at pitch first and then bend it, and then we get a real musical result. The second thing to notice about a bend is that we're bending to a particular place here. Here I'm targeting that 9th fret note, so you can fret that 9th fret note, memorise that pitch, and then try and hit it with the bend. We can of course bend just a half step, say if we took 4th fret and bent it up to 5th. Again, I can check my reference pitch. There's always a slight uncertainty with bending, and that's what gives it its real flavour. However accurate you are, there will always be a slight uncertainty in the pitch. And that you can really spot with some great players who use bends which they don't actually let you hear the bend. So that kind of technique, which used by Jimi Hendrix, Peter Green, amongst many others. It's a great technique. And you don't have to sound the bend, but it does give a great vibe to a note. So there's some options on bending. And then let's take our melody again, but this time we're going to use some bends. Okay, so again, play through the melody. Try and use bends as often as possible, always bending between a note that's in the scale and the next melody note. Yeah, plenty of practice on that. Now let's try it one more time, but this time I'm going to try and use all 4 varieties of articulation that we've used so far. So that's bends, slides, vibrato, and hammers and pulls, or legato technique. So here we go with God Save the Queen, and as much articulation as I can throw at it. Okay. Go. A little bit of God Save the Queen with possibly too much articulation, if that is at all possible. Yeah, happy practicing.